Alright, single dudes, here's your birth control. Did you know that in most states, in the event of a child being born, the mother will get sole physical and legal custody just right off the bat? That means if you want to make any decision about your child or even see your child, you have to fight for it in court with a lawyer. Even if your name is on the birth certificate and you've proven that you're the real father, if you're not married, you are not entitled to custody. Ooh, but you're gonna pay that child support though. And a fun thing about child support is they don't need to use your actual income. They can use a magical system called potential income. That means they can go, oh, you make $40,000 a year, but your boss makes $70,000 a year. There's no reason you can't get to where your boss is being. So we're going to calculate your child support based off of the potential income of your boss's $70,000 salary, even though you only make $40,000. That's because thanks to Title 4D of the Social Security Act, the state gets a certain huge percentage of every payment of child support made. The state just has much more to gain from you being a non-custodial parent with no rights over your child and simply being a paycheck than the child being afforded the opportunity to have two equal parents with 50-50 custody. That's why if even down the line you find out that you were never the father, you're going to keep paying child support until they're 18. State's got to get the money from somebody. I got a whole lot more to say, but for now, fellas, be very careful out there. And if she tells you not to worry about the condom, worry about the condom.
Yo, what is going on, guys? I hope you are all doing well. You know, guys, before we crack into the topic of today's video, I just want to start it off by saying, you know, I feel sorry for the dudes who want to go out here and actually want to start a family and have a serious relationship in the year 2022, because as it currently stands, guys, men who go out here and have children, particularly out in the West, literally can overnight have absolutely no rights over their children. Women can literally decide to leave at any given point in time, a long-term relationship, a marriage, whatever the case may be, and simply walk away with a man's children. Now, guys, this is obviously a very sensitive subject, and I think I actually covered a video previously from this woman here, which I just got completely incorrect. But nevertheless, we have a fantastic video from this woman here, which basically just, you know, as a guy, if you sit down and you watch this and you think about it for 2 seconds, it might put you off having a having children, getting married, or having a family, and thus is the way of Western societies currently. Now, guys, before we break down the video, we're actually going to take a look at some of the comments that people have left on this particular video, because I thought that they were quite interesting. So let's take a read of some of these. The first one here says, that one guy says, so what I hear is the system is 100% against men. Not only can a woman put a man's name on a birthday certificate with no proof or consent, even if I think it cuts off here. But the point he's trying to make is that women can commit paternity fraud, which, by the way, as far as I understand, guys, has, you know, no consequence in the year 2022. This person here says the government cares more about money than broken homes, something I fully agree with here. This guy here says, I'm sterile, paid all 18 years because I was married. They don't care who the father really is. And guys, this is what it really boils down to. Is like these governments, they don't want to pay for the single mothers. So what do? They pass it off to the dudes. You know, they pass it off to the men who are going to take care of children that aren't actually theirs, and all these sorts of things. It's actually incredibly disgusting. But guys, let's jump back into this particular video and break it down piece by piece. As always, guys, don't forget to leave your thoughts and your comments, and let's take a listen to what she has to say. And after we get through this, there's also a Reddit story that we're going to be covering. So let's take a listen here.
Control. Did you know that in most states, in the event of a child being born, the mother will get sole physical and legal custody just right off the bat?
Yep. And guys, the beautiful part about this is, right, is that when this happens, nobody gives a crap about the father. Like, for some reason, people in the year 2022 still seem to think that it's all about equality, and if the father's a nice guy, he's going to get custody of the kids. No, he typically is not. Women typically get the custody of the children. It is so easy for lawyers to paint the dude as the bad guy, you know, to say that he's potentially dangerous, whatever the case may be. And before you know it, the guy can't see his children, or he only sees them once every 2 weeks on the weekend or some crap like that, and he's forced to pay money to the woman when, let's be honest, a lot of the money that the man pays doesn't actually go towards the child. It's absolutely disgusting.
That means if you want to make any decision about your child or even see your child, you have to fight for it in court with a lawyer. Even if your name is on the birth certificate and you've proven that you're the real father, if you're not married, you are not entitled to custody. Ooh, but
And you know what? They don't care. Even if you're not, by the way, guys, this is absolutely magical here, okay? If you're a dude and you're not the biological father of a kid, there are actually plenty of stories that have been out here where women will take men to court to get them to pay child support, even though they're not the biological father. You see, it's not about who's the father, who's not the father. It's about screwing men over so the government doesn't have to pay, so that the women can go out here and continue to live their lives even though they completely screwed over a man. And guys, this is why dudes don't want to marry these women. Because the thing is, even if the woman is quote-unquote marriage material, which is a whole nother discussion in itself, even if she is marriage material, what is the point of risking your assets and your children in order to get married to her?
you're going to pay that child support, though. And a fun thing about child support is they don't need to use your actual income. They can use a magical system called potential income. That means they can go, oh, you make $40,000 a year, but your boss makes $70,000 a year. There's no reason you can't get to where your boss is being. So we're going to calculate your child support based off of the potential income of your boss's $70,000 salary, even though you only make $40,000.
This kind of reminds me of the situation that happens when people get divorced. Is like, you would think that when a divorce happens, the man would have to pay, you know, a flat amount to subsidize the woman's lifestyle, even though that's stupid, but that's what you would think, right? But it actually scales up because of, I believe it's called accustomed lifestyle or something like that, where, like, you know, the woman has become accustomed to a certain lifestyle, so that's what the man is due to pay her. Like, have you guys seen all of these sports stars, these rappers and whatever else, who they'll go through a divorce or the end of a relationship and they'll just be paying absurd amounts of money to women who don't deserve it? It's because it's not about actually finding an accurate or fair figure, which again is another discussion in itself, which, guys, I'm of the belief here, okay? If a woman wants to ruin a family, if she doesn't want to continue to get married, she does not, in my opinion, deserve the continued provisioning of the man. Why on earth men are expected to provide and care for things that aren't actually theirs is totally beyond me. If you're not my wife, if you're not my girlfriend, if you're not my kid, I'm sorry, you are not my problem. And that personally, guys, is the way that I view it. I think it's disgusting that the government will have men on the hooks for 18 years paying for kids that, one, aren't theirs, or two, that they can barely even see, or three, paying this amount of money to women because they've become accustomed to a lifestyle. If someone wants to correct me in the comments what that is, I know, like, women will get paid proportionally more compared to, you know, dependent on what the man earns. That's why you see these really stupid figures thrown around. Like, remember Amber Turd? Okay, she was going out here trying to get obscene amounts of money, even though nobody had ever really heard. Like, the only reason people know her is because they know Johnny, really. It's absolutely insane.
That's because, thanks to Title 4D of the Social Security Act, the state gets a certain huge percentage of every payment of child support made.
I mean, also, they don't have to subsidize the single mothers themselves, right? Like, they don't have to be the ones who are going out here paying these women to make terrible life decisions. And you know what happens, guys? Like, when these girls go out here and make terrible life decisions and they have children who they can't verify who the father is, they make all of these bad decisions. When these women ruin their lives, they literally blame everybody but themselves. I've covered a ridiculous amount of dating profiles over here on this channel, guys, and we've literally seen women with like 4, 5+ children, probably to different men, complaining about how they're just looking for somebody loyal, right? Or they're just looking for a good man, as if somehow it's not their fault that they chose, you know, specific men who were either not going to stay around or they didn't want to keep in the picture. Like, there's absolutely no accountability when it comes to this, and it seems to me, guys, like men have to always pick up the slack when it comes to this crap. Like, the woman can go out and make terrible, stupid decisions, and guess what? She gets a paycheck for the rest of her life, and she's totally fine. If you as a guy make terrible decisions, your life is ruined. You can't shack up with some rich, individual. Typically, you can't go out here and seek, subsidization from the government, because typically you can't even get the children, by the way. It's just absolute clown world out here, man.
State just has much more to gain from you being a non-custodial parent with no rights over your child and simply being a paycheck than the child being afforded the opportunity to have two equal parents with 50-50 custody.
Yeah, and here's a bit of a moment here. What makes you think that the government actually wants to have these stable families, right? Remember back in the day, guys, when it would be like, a man would go out there, he would work, and he would provide for the family. He would come home and the wife or girlfriend looks after the kid in the house, right? That's the way it used to be. Now, guys, we have twice as many taxpayers. Okay, you can barely provide for a family on a single person income these days. In fact, I don't think you really can. It's incredibly difficult these days, guys, with inflation and all of this sort of thing. A lot of people are out here with two incomes and they're going to be struggling to provide for a kid and stuff like that. This is what women wanted, guys. They wanted to join the workforce. They wanted to, ruin the traditional roles of between men and women. They wanted to go out there and do whatever the hell they wanted. And with that comes a set of problems. Okay, now the government is incentivized. They've gone, hey, what? Let's actually continue to do this because, all of these strong independent boss babes, they're lining our pockets. They can continue to pay taxes. They can continue to go out there and work. And you know what? We'll make money off of the men at the same time.
That's why if even down the line you find out that you were never the father, you're going to keep paying child support until they're 18.
Let that sink in, guys. Like you think a child is yours, and I heard recently, guys, I don't know where exactly I saw this, but I think I saw some story with the French judiciary, right, where they refuse to release paternity fraud statistics because they're worried it will decentralize their society and men will just lose their minds over it. Like, someone can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I have heard that the paternity fraud statistics are so damn high that a lot of places just simply don't want to release them because it'll collapse their society. Like, let that sink in for a second, guys. We have so many dudes out here paying for looking after kids that aren't even theirs, and the governments are like, you know what? Let's just leave it that way. Right? Let's just continue to get the men to do this because otherwise, one, we'd have to do it, and number two, we make money off of the men who are paying these payments anyway.
State's got to get the money from somebody. I got a whole lot more to say, but for now, fellas, be very careful out there. And if she tells you not to worry about...
Yes, so we're going to be leaving that video there, guys, and I wanted to jump into a bit of a Reddit story that I had pulled up here today, guys. This is an infidelity story, and when we get into these stories, guys, it blows my mind. I know I have a lot of guys over here, excuse me. You can tell I'm stuttering. I've had an obscene amount of coffee. We have a lot of dudes over here who have chosen to get married, who have long-term relationships, but particularly for the younger guys, the guys who are not married, unless you have there is no reason for a young man, for a dude in the year 2022 to get married. To me personally, guys, it just looks like there's so much risk. There are so many things that can potentially go wrong, and men are on the hook for pretty much everything. I know we have a lot of guys over here who have been married for like 20 years and stuff like that, but there are also a lot of guys who are looking at situations going, like these and going, man, I don't want to risk these things. So let's jump into this story here. It's 11 days ago, and it's titled, "My wife, who was a 23-year-old woman, cheated on me, who was a 24-year-old male, earlier this year. We've tried to work through it, but now I feel like I want to leave and I feel guilty." This is always a telltale sign, guys. You can always tell when a guy is just completely and utterly clueless or spineless or brainwashed, whatever word you want to use, because they'll go through relationships, and whenever a dude is done wrong, the amount of times that I will see men try and stay in situations that are bad or try and continue relationships that have no business being continued is pretty damn astounding to me. Like, this guy literally gets cheated on by his wife, and he's sitting here going, you know what? I feel guilty that I might potentially want to leave this relationship. My guy, your relationship is damn well over. But let's jump in here. He says, "I grew up Mormon and so did my wife. We met when we were 17 and we dated for 2 years before getting married. I always felt like we were pressured by our parents to get married young, and I was always interested in doing things, so I definitely let my hormones make a lot of decisions for me. Since then, I have always had an issue where she meets guys at work or whatever and just gets really flirty with them, gets their number and adds them on Snapchat and just talks with them even more than she will talk with me, and she goes out of her way to not let me see when she's messaging them. And one day at work, she messaged me saying that she was taking a nap and would be hard asleep, which was really unusual for her to say something like that. So right off the bat, guys, if you have a relationship with a woman and she's out here, she's messaging, she's getting men's numbers, she's adding dudes on Snapchat, she's flirting with men, this is not a relationship. I don't know why. I think a lot of younger men in particular, they'll seem to think that love comes before respect. But to me, guys, like the moment girls do this sort of thing, I see no reason for men to continue having relationships with them, especially if they're your wife or your long-term girlfriend or something like that. They should know better than to do these things. And oftentimes women will go out here and they will do these things because they understand that a lot of men don't have the spine to actually leave them, which I think is disgusting. Like, as soon as a girl does something like this, guys, she has to return to the streets where she belongs. Especially, this is a woman who's a wife, by the way. He says, I told my work I'd take an attendance hit and go home early to check in on her. And when I got home, she wasn't there and she had left her phone there, so I couldn't call her. But it was about 2 hours later she came home and I thought she cheated on me. But she told me she had gone climbing with some friends, which wasn't unusual, but she was the only girl there and she knew I'd be uncomfortable with that. So I told her that crossed a boundary for me, and she says okay, but isn't happy about it because she's always had guy friends. We've moved on past that and everything was good for a while up until about 2 years ago. Yeah, so what you're telling me here is your girlfriend was, your wife was cheating on you literally 2 years ago. And cheating, guys, cheating is not something that goes away. Okay, all of this crap of like adding random men on Snapchat, flirting with dudes, these are not behaviors that lead to nothing, and these are not behaviors that simply go away because you guys talked it out. The fact of the matter is, if you have these behaviors happen to you and you continue the relationship, they're going to happen again and they're going to get worse. Whether or not you actually catch her or not is a different story entirely, but they will continue. He says, we moved around a lot before buying a condo in Las Vegas, and I got a job that sucked the life out of me, but I worked for 3 years to try and get this job, which was supposed to be my dream job. We previously were strong members, but had decided to get tattoos and try drinking, and she got a job at a liquor store and started drinking and having people over almost every weekend. Her being flirty with guys was emphasized whenever she got intoxicated. She would laugh and do questionable things. I was going through some pretty severe D-word because at this point I'd been let go from my dream job and everything I worked for kind of fell apart in terms of my career, and I just became reclusive, etc., etc. Fast forward a few months and I decided to finally pull myself out there again and got a job doing solar sales with my brother-in-law. I told her I'd stay up there during the week and work and come home on weekends until I had enough money to move us up and sell our condo, which ended up being about only 4 weeks, and we found a place to move into. He says, I kept my job for about another month before the managers closed up because someone had been stealing a ton of money, and then ending up getting a job with my wife driving forklifts, and we did that for a while, but our relationship got pretty rocky when I found out she'd been messaging one of the co-workers from the liquor store who she told me would always do questionable things and yada yada. So right here, guys, like, you can already tell where this is going, that the wife is going to cheat, and you don't really need to read past the first sentence. Okay, and the amazing part about this story is, like, if these two had children and the wife cheated on him with another man and decided to leave him at any given point in time, she would in all likelihood be able to walk away with the kids and also suck him for a lot of money. Like, that's the point where we're at in the year 2022, guys. You can read stories like this where women will commit infidelity and they can still walk away from it holding the bag. He says, this upsets me, and I told her she shouldn't be messaging someone who clearly doesn't care about her or her best interests and has treated her the way she has treated him by him previously. She agreed and told me she wouldn't message him anymore, but about 2 weeks later, she was in bed asleep when her phone started ringing and I checked it. Yeah, so, excuse me, when she's sitting here saying that, talking about this dude, she's already cheating on you with this man, by the way. He says, it was him calling her, so I went through her phone and saw they'd been messaging for about a month, all day, morning, night, super dirty things she wouldn't even say to me, etc., etc. I tried to wake her up, but she was extremely intoxicated. I couldn't even sleep. The next day we talked, and she tried to blame it on the drinking. of course, but she knew that wasn't true because they talked for a month. She said she knew it was wrong and didn't know why she didn't stop. We talked for about 5 hours and in the end decided to try and work it out. This is the worst. This is always the worst part of the story, guys. This is always the worst part of these infidelity recounts. Okay, it's not the fact that the woman cheated, it's not the fact that she did all of these awful things and lied about it. The worst part of these stories is you read right down to the very end where the guy goes through all of these situations and then he's like, you know what, we talked and we worked it out. What is there to work out? You shouldn't be working out anything. Your wife cheated on you and you're sitting here talking to her for 5 hours. There is no talking. There is no discussion. Tell her to get the hell out. He says it's been almost a year, but I have a very hard time trusting her. We argued today and it was brought up and it just flooded me with all the emotions of betrayal, etc. I don't feel like our relationship is healthy, and I feel like someone she has a lot of room to grow as a person and needs to work on herself and be comfortable with who she is. I feel so guilty for even writing this, but could really use some advice. Isn't it amazing, guys, how like in the year 2022, guys will feel guilty for having some semblance of self-respect and considering leaving women, you know? Like they're like, man, I got wronged. I don't really know if I should be here anymore. And then dudes are out here feeling guilty, even though they were the ones who got cheated on. Absolutely disgusting. Guys, we're going to be leaving today's episode there. Remember to leave your thoughts and your comments, guys. What do you think about the marriage climate for men in the year 2022? What do you guys think about the Reddit story that we covered here today? Would you guys give this man a gentle slap in the face and tell him to ditch his wife? What exactly would you say to him? But otherwise, guys, we're going to be leaving it there. Make sure that you take care of yourselves, and I'll be seeing you all in the next episode. Peace.